So we just released the new findings of some research we did. We're trying to understand, in employee surveys, are humans or AI better at identifying emotion and sentiment in the data? And what's really interesting, so we structured this almost experimentally, not just a survey of people, but also to really try to analyze this just like an academic study. So we surveyed 1,000 North American workers to understand their sentiment and their issues at work. Are you stressed? Tell me about that. How's your relationship with your manager? Those kinds of questions. And we used that data to then pass that to a handful of consulting firms to get the human analysis piece of that, let them return what hot buttons they saw, what friction points in the employee experience, those kinds of things. And then we ran that same data through Ultimate Software's NLP, Natural Language Processing Engine, to look at the data and see what sort of sentiment and emotions it could find in there. It was really interesting. So we were able to prove with this research that AI is better than humans at analyzing survey data for those kinds of things. The initial data was actually collected, we collected through a third party. We gathered that data from the open market. So these are just 1,000 North American workers that are currently employed. That was the focus group that we targeted there. And then again, we brought that data in, cleaned it, and then used that to pass to the parties and pass to Ultimate Software. The goal was we couldn't do this with an actual company. We tried to recreate this just like it would be a 1,000-person employer though, right? So we asked those same kind of questions they would get and then use that data, pass it to each of the parties to have them analyze it and see who could do it best. There are a couple problems with the employee survey process as we currently know it. So it's funny because back when I worked in HR, these were the problems, and here we are 10 years later, still the same problems. So one of those is a timeliness. I talked to an employer a few months ago. They have 20,000 employees. From the point where they decide they're going to start an employee survey till the point they get the data back from their service provider, 6 months. So they said, hey, the problems those employees had 4 months ago, they've all quit now, right? They're not even here anymore. And we laugh about those things, but that's a reality for a lot of companies. So the timeliness is a big issue. Being able to segment the data and understand it. In the research, we also did a kind of companion piece where we actually pulsed more than 300 HR leaders to ask them how they're structuring their engagement surveys. Most HR leaders are still doing an annual look at that. And when we ask them what kind of questions they're asking, they're doing a mix of closed multiple choice questions, on a scale of 1 to 5, how do you feel about this? But they're also doing a little bit of open-ended, unstructured questions. So what are we doing well? Tell us about that. What are we not doing well? Tell us about that. The problem is, I just an hour ago spoke to an employer here at the show that I know that said, hey, the problem is when we're doing these surveys, no one actually looks at any of that data because we don't know what to do with it. We have 10,000 employees. We don't know no one can take all that time to look through the data of the unstructured questions. So we just end up averaging all of the other multiple choice questions and saying, hey, 70% of our people are happy. Let's just go with that. So AI is better than humans at analyzing it. I'm trying to be careful with this. So AI is better at analyzing it, but obviously it can't go forth and solve the problems. It's not going to go do those things that need to be done. So the human comes in there. We've shortened the time from, in that one example, 6 months down to, in our study, 87% reduction in time. We actually it took them approximately 2 days to turn this back around to us, and it can do it faster. That was just us trying to work around all the schedules, but 2 days to get this data back. It's better because it's instant, near instant, being able to get this data and decide what to do next. There's a lot of insight there. We actually can segment the data in 1,000 different ways. So let's look at it by gender, let's look at it by age, let's look at it by work location or job function. Anything that you can think of, we can segment that. So in the data, it's actually funny. For the study we presented, we broke it down by people that had kids, people that didn't have kids, and found the kinds of things they're stressed about, even at work. We didn't ask them their life, but at work even, their family stresses bleed over into affecting them at work. They can't focus. They're having a lot of stress and issues because those family things creep in. So it's an example of how even stuff that happens outside the bubble of work still can bleed over into that. So there's a lot of ways that you can apply NLP across the landscape of HR tech. For example, one of the providers that I've been talking to, they actually have it where during the performance rating, as the manager is giving a rating, right, I'll give you a 2 out of 5. Sorry, I'm just going to give you a 2 out of 5 on your performance. But what do most managers do? They then go in and write a really nice positive comment to make the person feel better. I just gave you a 2, but I'm going to say nice things about you. Well, the NLP engine actually analyzes the sentiment of the words you're using and says, wait a minute, there's a mismatch here. You gave them a negative rating, but you're saying positive things. You need to change one of these so they actually match up. So that's an example of how NLP can be applied in just those little micro interactions to help coach managers to make better decisions. It makes HR's life better, for sure. You can also use NLP to analyze things like Glassdoor data to see, are the candidates that are applying for jobs generally happy or not, and what can we do about it? One of the issues is, strangely enough, they're going to have to do something with the information. I think one of the challenges that employers have always faced, this isn't new, is they're a little concerned about asking employees questions, asking them for feedback, asking them about their problems, their concerns, because then they have that information and there's an expectation they're going to have to do something with it. So once I've told you that there's a problem, I expect some sort of response to that. And if I don't get it, that creates a very negative experience and it doesn't end well. So employers that are willing to go down this route, the problems are there. Asking about them doesn't create them. The problems are already there. It just allows you to know what they are and try to address them. A couple of the case studies we talked about yesterday when we released the research, some of the case studies for people that are using these tools, higher employee engagement broadly, reduced turnover, cost savings from having less training, less turnover, less recruiting costs, things like that. So if you understand your employee better, fundamentally, you should be able to serve them better and they'll want to stick around longer, they'll probably perform better. All those good metrics that HR wants to be bringing to the leadership team and saying, hey, look at this impact we're having on the business, that enables those kind of things because you're getting past the basics and getting to be a little more strategic in the work you're doing. So there are always privacy issues, right? It seems like today even more than ever. One of the interesting things though, I talked to a company recently, they're based in Germany, and they actually have works councils that kind of govern what you can do as an employer. They're advocating for the employees. And one of the struggles that company had, they said, we actually gathered this survey feedback from our employees. They went through all that trouble, all the time and effort and expense of gathering survey data on their employees and their satisfaction. And then they tried to hire a consultant to come in and help them analyze that and do something with it. And the Workers' Council would not allow that third party to see the employee feedback, all that data. So privacy is already a problem. A tool like this would help you get around that issue because there's no need to send it out to someone else. You're using this in-house. The only people that'll see it are those in-house. So there's always privacy issues. But those employees are sharing these things voluntarily with the sincere hope that the company is going to actually take action and help them to create a better workplace. With the new laws that are coming out, California has just passed a law. Illinois has some interesting things around AI and recruiting, not necessarily applicable to this, but other laws as well. Employers need to be really careful about how they're making decisions, about what tools they're using. And I don't know if it's necessarily a policy, but they need to be educating themselves on how these laws affect the tools they can use, what data is being collected, where they're storing that data, who has access to it, how long they're going to keep it, all those basic things, or maybe that is a policy, right, around data retention, all those kinds of things. But understanding it from that perspective, because so many companies I talk to are excited about getting a solution. They're global firms, and they don't realize at that initial moment of excitement, and I've rained on their parade a little bit, just tell them you need to double check the privacy laws before you go all in. You don't want to find out, like the company in Germany, that your data is locked and you can't actually access it anymore.